Hello and welcome to Bitovi Solving Advent of Code. So here at Bitovi, we're experts in front-end development, Angular, React, Node.js, DevOps, project management, UX, and more. If you need application development help, reach out for a free consultation by emailing contact@bitovi.com or visiting our website at bitovi.com. Also, in the go live notification, you might have noticed we have our new Discord channel up, so feel free to check that out. So today, if you tuned in Thursday of last week, Wade and myself solved problem one of Advent of Code. And today I'm joined by none other than Jared to help me solve day two. So with that, Jared, could you tell me a little bit about yourself? How'd you find yourself in this situation?
First of all, you have to say my last name. So now I'm putting you on the spot. It's fun, isn't it?
Zween?
Oh man, that's
Zwine?
close. So it's like Wayne, like
Wayne?
John Wayne. I'm not like John Wayne, like Wayne with a Z. Zwayne. I've heard them all. I've heard
Zwayne.
Zyween. I've heard Zawian. I've heard like lots of different things. The funny thing is, it's of Polish origin, and it's like in Poland there's a beer that's spelled Zywiec, which is called Żywiec, and I think like Żywian or Żywen is how you pronounce it in Polish. But I am not Polish. My grandfather came over when he was 6 years old. Um, so it's Zwain. It's like Wayne with a Z. So
Zwayne.
what was the
Okay.
question? What else did you want to know other than how to pronounce my last name? Even though we've been working together for almost a year, AJ.
Well, usually I read it. So
I've
I
noticed that you
wanted to say,
intentionally stayed away from it, which isn't the first time that's happened. Jared's here. Yeah,
oh yeah. Yeah, if you want to tell us a bit about yourself, so like where you're from, what kind of job you have, how we know each other, there's some stuff like that.
sure. Where I'm from is a hard one. That's even hard to start off on that one. My dad was in the Air Force, and so I was actually born in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Lived in Massachusetts, Ohio, back to New Mexico, back to Ohio. Went to college at Center College, which is the geographical center of Kentucky, also known as the Harvard of the South, which I think that like every state has their Harvard of the thing. It was not. It was not the Harvard of the South. It was like 1,300 students. I went there to play football of all things. Um, and then I have been programming in some sort of form or another since I was a freshman in high school. I have a brother that's 15 years older than me. He's a half brother, but he got me into programming. That was his career choice as well. He realized that he wouldn't make any money being a music major. So while he is a classically trained opera singer and he's very phenomenal at that, he ended up going into programming as a profession and now like runs the world. I think he works for Google. Um, so I don't know if you've heard of the company Google. I think they do like search engines or something like that.
Yeah,
Um,
I've heard.
but but he's a pretty cool guy. But he got me into programming. And I was talking to a colleague, Mike Lambert. Say hi, Mike. Talking to him today about how we got into programming. We found out that our first language was Quick Basic. So I was 14, and I think there was the Gorillas, the Quick Basic Gorillas application. I remember like the gorillas throwing bananas at each other. That's the thing that got me hooked. And then I went to Pascal and then C++, and then college was Python, Java, and this is Java like 1.4. This is before they had all the cool features. So I was doing like swing development with Java in college, and like finished up with Python. Professionally, I started with ActionScript. Don't tell anybody because I don't want to work on any Adobe Flex applications, even though we'll get into it. But here at Moody's, we still have a couple of those sticking around. But then quickly got into the C++ land and multi-platform C++ development. So our code actually ran on like 14 different platforms, some of which were the AS400s, which are mainframes. So that was super fun. No STL or nothing. Um, and then worked there for about 12 years and then started bouncing around to different places. But now I'm at Moody's. Moody's is my first kind of larger company. I kind of went to a lot of startups and then I'm in here at Moody's now. I don't really know what I do. I'm still trying to figure that out. I like to write code. My job doesn't let me write as much as I would like to write, but I still am capable of writing some really awful code in different iterations. I'm having a good time doing the advent of code questions. And as I was telling you, AJ, like my OCD is killing me because I have all of my folders separated up of day one, day three, day four, day five, but there's that big hole that's missing. So I'm excited to solve that today and kind of close that gap. But I do a lot of lead a lot of front end development here at Moody's, and really trying to specifically figure out how to upgrade our upskill our teams. Um, Part of one of the projects that I'm on is kind of overseeing a component library written in Angular, and then another project that was built for some of our regulatory purposes. But I've been here for about 3 years now, so I really like it. I really like the people that we work with. You're going to meet up with Ben and AJ later on for, I think, day 6 problems, which was today.
Yep. Yep. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. So that's kind of a little bit about me. Probably too much, more than you probably wanted to know, but it was a good time.
No, that's great because some of the stuff it leads into, like you have a very broad experience of all these different languages. So for some people, when you ask like, what's your favorite programming language? If they know one, chances are that's the one. But
Yeah.
you have this like huge bucket to choose from. So I'm really interested to know out of these, and we aren't going to put you on the prod Adobe Flex stuff. So feel free to say Adobe Flex is your
It's
favorite
definitely not
programming language.
Adobe Flex. It's definitely not Adobe Flex. Although the project that I was working on was with a kind of like a senior architect level guy, and he wrote some very, very good Adobe Flex code. And it was one of the, like, I didn't appreciate it at the time. I was like, why does he have so many classes for all of these different things? And only until now, like, I understand that that's software design and architecture, and it's like, the college hire in me was like, oh my, this is like, it's so confusing to understand where this stuff goes. It was also because the service layer was calling through the JNI into C++ code, which was a little bit more convoluted. But it does, and it's one of those things that having that kind of that breadth of experience, that I kind of know some good things, know some bad things about different aspects of each language. Um, TypeScript has probably been my favorite so far. And it was funny because I started in 2013. I was working at a startup where we were using kind of like a full JavaScript stack. And this was really early on. It was like Node 0.10.32 or something like that. I think we ended up upgrading to 0.12 by the time I left. Um, but it was using Enyo.js on the client side, which if you don't know what that is, it was a library that was created by WebOS at the time. But it was created by Palm, but it was specifically designed for WebOS. But it was like a general UI framework. Ended up getting bought by somebody, but it was an inspiration because one of the guys that worked on Enyo was a guy named Matt McClure, who ended up going to Google and working on Polymer, which was a big web component framework. And so there was a lot of there was like a this dot dollar sign dot something syntax to it. And so that kind of bled its way into Polymer. And Polymer obviously led into like web components as a standard and led into lit HTML and things like that. So I see kind of the progression of the front end. I did some stuff with Angular JS at a consulting firm, and I don't ever want to do that again. But I do like TypeScript, and I like even going through. We have a lot of Java folks here at Moody's. And Vajesh, if you're watching, if you're listening to this, he even said, "Hey, I really like the conciseness of your." Actually, he said, "I love the TypeScript solution that you had," or something like that. But I took it as him saying, "I love TypeScript," which I've never heard him say before. So I was pretty excited about that.
Nice. Hopefully after today we'll have some more converts to
I hope so.
TypeScript. Yeah. Um, awesome. Cool. So on to today, like so Advent of Code, every day they come out with a new problem at midnight Eastern. And then there's a race to solve it. I hate to let you know that we are not in the running for the race anymore.
No.
I did a quick check, and I think the fastest time was 2 minutes 2 minutes and 38 seconds for this problem. So
So we're already
um,
way over.
Yes, even
Okay.
from within the context of the stream, we missed that. But I think
I
we
think I
might be
talked about
able to.
where I was from for longer than that. So but yeah, to that point, like I saw day one, and that's when I realized like I will never sniff the leaderboard on this thing when the person was able to solve both problems in 58 seconds. So like I couldn't even read the problem that fast, let alone solve it in 58. So good for them. You win. Like we were talking about it in code review today in terms of like, what's the point of this? I guess what's the point of Advent of Code? Um, and so my basic point was it's up to you, right? It's strictly a fun thing. This isn't something where your bonuses are going to be bigger if you do well on it. It's not something to where um, you can optimize it away. To me, it's what do you care about? What are the things that you want to focus on? I know a lot of people are purists and they're like, if you're not processing the input using your code, then you're cheating. You're not doing it right. And I'm like, that's cool. I've seen some solutions, especially day 5, which is the stacks and stuff. And I've never been more happy that I decided to pre-process the input than that time, because I was like, I would have spent probably an hour trying to figure out how to process that thing into a stack, as opposed to just getting it into a stack in a test file and then like spending the 10 minutes to solve it, right? um, so like I don't want to focus on processing the input. I want to focus on solving the problem, and I want to focus on like maintainability, right? Like writing good code, using all of the things that we ascribe to here at Moody's of code by intention, and make sure that you're writing maintainable code. And I'm not optimizing for performance. I'm not really, unless you have to, I'm not considering things like space complexity or time complexity or big O. I can talk about big O and the big O of my solution, but I don't really care about it because this is just fun for me. It's not leak code. It's not an interview. It's not like I did all the ACM programming competitions in high school and college, and those were super fun. But here we have control of the input, where there you don't have control of the input. So it's like there's a cause for it, but like it's really just get out of it what you want, and have fun with it. So to me, it's fun, and the choice behind how you approach it is really up to you.
Yeah, yeah, and I 100% agree. I know that there's the people you talked about with like the purists and that, um, but there's people solving these using all manner of languages. So Excel is one. And this year somebody's working on the problems in Factorio, like a factory-based game, which I thought was pretty neat, probably somewhat torturous. Um, we're not doing that here. We're going to stick
Good.
to
So
TypeScript.
in line with that, the person that solved the day one problem the fastest seems to be solving it in a Nintendo 64 emulator version of Super Mario Brothers. So it's like an emulation of Super. I don't know, like I just see the code of how they're solving it, and it's like it's in an Nintendo 64 emulator based C++, and I'm like, okay, like there's points in my life where I feel like I'm pretty good at something. Like I thought I was pretty good at football, but like I was D3 and like wasn't sniffing the pros. And the difference between me and the pros is like, it's taller than this building. And I think I'm pretty good programmer professionally. Like I've made a pretty good living at it. Like it brings me joy. But then I see stuff like that and I'm like, okay, like that's cool. There's different levels here, and maybe it's not as wide as the building, but there's still a pretty wide gap between the people that are solving this in 58 seconds and what I can do. So I'm gonna have fun with it.
Yeah, and it's also looking at stuff like you mentioned, stuff like focusing on maintainability, testability, being able to go through a problem and know that you're not going to be the only person that ever deals with this code and that you're going to be
Yeah.
transitioning it to somebody else. And all those types of considerations, each one of them is adding some type of constraint. It's adding constraints to your code, it's adding constraints to how you think of a problem, and it's each of those constraints is usually either adding like time or complexity in a solution that if you didn't have those considerations you could just really fire straight through and like every variable is just like X and a number. You don't have to worry about like naming something good. You can just X1.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
hopefully we don't do any X1 variables today.
We will not. That's one thing that we won't do.
Okay. So then, next up, I see you're wearing headphones. And you also mentioned that you like to program. Um, do you use headphones while programming? And do you listen to stuff with them while programming?
So yes, and yes. Um, I I use headphones pretty much all day unless I'm in meetings or things like that. And within the Zoom economy, like, I came back to the office one day and I didn't even put my headphones. I didn't take them out of my backpack, and I was like, it's weird to do that. But then, yeah, I think I like pretty much all types of music, but I'll listen to playlists that I listen to all the time because then it's just background noise. Um, but I love listening to music and writing code. And we all have standing desks here at Moody's, which is super nice. We got this nice little background here. What I can't do, I can sit down, I can't stand up to code. I can stand up to talk, I can stand up in meetings, and I usually stand up for meetings, but I can't so I can listen to music, but I can't stand up and code. I don't know what it is. I'm just too fidgety and like it just takes me out of it. So
Nice. Cool. So one more question, then we'll hop on to the advent of code question. Um, so this one is probably pretty easy. We talked about languages, music, but now it's on to editors. So I'm curious, and I'm sure the audience is curious too. Uh, what is your favorite code editor, and why is it VS Code?
oh, that's hilarious. So I was around when Sublime Text was the rage, right? And that's what I used to use back when I was doing JavaScript development early on. And then Atom came out, and I was like, "What? Like, what is this thing? This is kind of crazy. Like, it's a JavaScript-based editor doing JavaScript and JavaScript. Like, it's turtles all the way down." Um, but when Atom first came out, it was based off of like an early build of Electron, and it was based off of like the same thing we were using, which was Node 0.12. And so, like the way that it worked, like it wasn't great. It was not a great experience with all the plugins and everything like that. Right? And so, going from experimenting with Atom, going back to Sublime Text because Atom was like it wasn't working. And then when VS Code first came out, I was like, this is what Atom was trying to be. And in fairness, I think VS Code like branched off of Atom or something like that. Like it was the same code editing experience. But Microsoft seemed to have done a better job about it. And I think isn't Atom's not a thing anymore, right? Like yeah, it went away.
Yeah, it's gone.
Yeah. But VS Code was very much that uh, kind of thing that was rock solid. It seemed to be stable. The plugin ecosystem was really good. You could, as a polyglot developer, you could do development in pretty much any language you wanted to. It wasn't like, and I will caveat this by saying I do like the IntelliJ products. I like WebStorm. I like PyCharm. I don't like IntelliJ because I don't use Java, but I like Rider for .NET development. CLion for doing some C++ stuff. Um, and those are really great to have all those products. But VS Code is really nice if it's like, okay, I want to try out Rust. Let me install the Rust plugin and everything just kind of works. Let me install the Go plugin and everything just kind of works. Oh yeah, let me do Angular development. Plus there's all these schematics. Plus there's all these things that make things really nice to be able to use. So I do like VS Code, but I will, when I'm working professionally and working on some of the projects that we have, I do really enjoy WebStorm for doing Angular development. But I do like VS Code.
Nice. We aren't using, like, we're using VS Code, but one of the features I love of VS Code is the remote containers. So if you want to try
Yeah,
something like Rust, you don't even have to install like the Rust CLI, any of that
yeah.
stuff. It's just already in a container, it spins up, and you're off to the races with that. So
Well,
pretty
even just
fun.
like all of the extensions and all of the things that people have built off of VS Code, things like Gitpod, where from within a GitHub repo, you can launch Gitpod, and that's a running container in the browser with like a VS Code style editor. And so it's all very familiar. But what I will say is like the default theme that VS Code provides is like even in WebStorm, I install the VS Code theme for WebStorm. to be able to use the color scheme. So I do enjoy that.
Nice. Awesome. Okay. With that, let's get to the advent of code problem. So I'm going to just move our faces down a bit so people can see the problem a bit better. So are you familiar with the game Rock, Paper, Scissors?
Yes,
Yes. Have you played it before?
I have played rock paper scissors, and I have a 10-year-old daughter. And while we're waiting for food at restaurants, she will make me play rock paper scissors for, I don't know, 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes at a time, which is a lot of rock paper scissors games. And she beats me. I would say if we kept track of how many times she's won versus I've won, she's probably beat me 75% of the time. It's crazy. And it's funny because my wife and I play sometimes to like figure out who's going to take out the trash. That's our equalizer. That's our argument breaker is who's going to take out the trash, or we rock paper scissors for it. And I beat her probably 90% of the time. But my daughter, for some reason, she just gets like, I don't know if she's like inside my head. I don't know if she's just picking so randomly that I can't figure out what her strategy is. With my wife, she's pretty predictable. With my daughter, I'm like, oh, like I'm so like I get scared, I get panicky when we play. But yes, very very familiar with rock paper scissors, and the variations of it: rock paper scissors dynamite, rock paper scissors. What's the Star Trek one? Rock
There
paper
is
scissors
Lizard,
blaster.
Spock.
Yeah, Lizard Spock. Yeah.
Yeah,
But
Spock.
so rock paper scissors is just like the basic one. Do I need to join the Twitch stream, by the way, like, or should I just pull this up and we can review it together?
Uh, you can pull it up. Right now I'm just it's on the screen, so the people on the Twitch stream
Okay,
can see it. They can also go
gotcha.
to adventofcode.com, the year/day/2, and they should be good to go. And then on the left-hand side, there'll be our editor, which we're both on. I don't know if I can call you to my cursor or what.
Okay,
Um,
you're on data here.
yeah, and then
Oh,
so
okay,
now,
cool.
yeah.
Okay,
So this was just a first crack at it. So as we go through, hopefully that looks readable to me. If it's not, let me know.
yeah, it's readable.
Yeah. Okay.
We can make it
Um,
bigger too if it needs to be bigger for
yeah.
other people.
Um, Here, let me just do that. So what we do is it sounds like the elves are playing rock, paper, scissors. Um, they are giving us a guide of how we should play, and then we have to figure out whether it's a win or a loss. And um, we get different points for different selections. So
Okay,
it looks like here, I'm just gonna, it's a little bit bigger so none of the words are cut off for now. Yeah, one for rock, two for paper, and three for scissors. So I'm going to copy that in to here. And then the score of the outcome of the round is 0 if you lost, 3 for a draw, and 6 for a win.
okay,
Okay. And then I've already taken some liberty. The AY having the data look like this. I was thinking if it looked more like this, it might be a bit easier to parse. I don't know if you
cool.
have thoughts on that.
That looks good. I think because either way, if it's just string lines of a space y, you're gonna split it based off of the space and have one value and another. So this is fine.
Okay. Okay. Well, so with that, we've roughly have a guide, and then we know for this first one, uh, we want to get a total score of 15. So with that, let's actually start with the data piece. So I'm going to hop over to the raw data. So and just kind of look at this. So spaces, and I think we can do some regex. Do you like regex or hate regex?
I'm not a regex person.
Okay.
Um, it's one of those things where every time I need to do a complicated regex, I Google search it first. And then I go to like a regex playground or something like that just to like type out different values just to validate that I'm getting the right thing. But it's one of those things that's always an inconvenience to me personally. But I know some people love regex, and we actually have one of the guys here that's a managing director is like a regex king, and he like can solve any problem with just regex. And I'm like, that's cool, but no thanks. Because again, if my goal is to focus on maintainability, I'm gonna focus on not using lots and lots of regex. Because if I'm doing a code review or something, I see regex, it's like I have to trust that works. There's no way for me to validate that, but there really is. But
Yeah.
do I have control as well? Because I'll tell you what I'd like to do as opposed to regex for
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
like this, where
Yeah. Definitely.
if what we're trying to do is get to this, what I will do is I'm much more of like a hotkey type person.
Ooh.
So go to the bottom, do the nice little command here. Is this JSON a text file? What am I trying to get this as?
To JSON, and then we'll like copy and paste it
Oh,
into the
okay.
data.ts file.
But it's JSON, so I need to make sure it's a double quote. Okay.
Then,
Comment.
yeah.
Fair enough.
That was probably faster than regex.
So that's why I would rather do that than go Google, figure out what the regex is to like identify which of the items in the string, like, you know what I mean?
100%.
Okay. So do you want to do the regex? Do you like regex, AJ? Because we can undo this and you can do it with regex and I'll just watch you do it. And I'll trust that like you've got better regex skills than I do.
Before I try that, I'm just going to copy and paste this into input.
And just so everybody, like if anybody on the live stream like doesn't know about I think I'm looking at my keyboard now, I just know it by heart. The alt or opt key, I've got like this other, alt or opt, shift, and then click. You can get a cursor on multiple lines.
Okay.
And then you can just start typing. And it's good too that like it's a regular, like it's a one character string per thing. You can still do it if it's not, but it's easier, obviously, if everything's standardized.
Okay. So how I would do this is I'm going to get the first character, and by putting it in parentheses, I'm saying it's like a capture. And then I'm going to get the second character, and same thing, putting it in the parentheses. So then if I replace it, I'm going to do something like $1. I'm going to need the quotes, double quotes.
Where are you typing this?
This
is it just like a macro capture? Or?
Oh, I wish I was that good. It's in the find replace window.
Oh, okay. I don't see it. See it.
Okay. Let's see if it works.
Oh, it's on the live stream. That's why.
Okay, so it did work. So I'm just gonna. Oh, but I also need the comma. Okay. So
nice.
It should work. But I do like the horizontal. Is it horizontal or vertical cursor?
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're going to go with. I'm not going to copy and paste my solution. So this way, it's your macro piece that was able to accomplish this. Okay.
Okay.
So when you read a problem like this, you have some strings. We're doing a value. What kind of thoughts are going through your head when you're thinking about thinking about that, like any algorithms or data structures that kind of pop to mind?
Yeah, in this one especially because it's like we have this we talk like I know we mentioned something when it came out like this map, like maps with various values, and it's like having I don't know what the second part of the problem is going to have,
Hmm. Yes.
but it's one of those things where I was like, I know there's some sort of like mathematical solution to this where we can convert the strings to char codes and like generate index values for these things. So like in this case, like the opponent is A, B, and C, and then our choice is X, Y, Z, but they represent the same thing, right? So like you could say char code of A, or the char code of their choice minus the char code of A would give you like 0, 1, or 2. And then the same thing with X, Y, and Z, you could do it that way. But I'm like, it's one of those things where like for this type of thing, having just a simple lookup of like, let's not do any sort of char code conversions. Let's not like try to do that way. Let's just do a lookup. Let's say like X is for like the score, right? The
Yeah.
X is equal to 1, Y is equal to 2, and Z is equal to 3. And in TypeScript, that's super easy because it's just an object with a key index and a number value. And then we go from there.
Okay, so if I was to type up what you said, it would be something like this, where I'm making an attribute y, and
Yep.
I don't know what y is.
2.
And
I think it's X,
2.
XYZ is 1, 2, 3, right?
Oh, okay. I'm gonna put it in alphabetical order.
Be better. Oh god.
Okay. So something like this. So if I'm getting what you said, then if I do something like score and I pass in y, something like this should return 2, right?
Yep.
Cool.
Yep.
Cool. Okay. And then we'll also need to figure out if a person won. So any thoughts? Any?
Well, yeah, and same thing here, right? Like it's one of those things to where you could create just a map of not an actual map, just a JavaScript object lookup
Mhm.
of like for my value, what is the corresponding object that would tell me based on what the other person chose, what is the value of this, like the actual output score that you get, right?
Okay.
So in this case, it would be like X to an object of A, B, and C, and then what the score is based off of that.
Yeah. Okay. So something like would we start with X?
Let's start with X because it's like we're doing it based off of what, like it's based off of our choice, right? Like but it's all based off of what the value is based off of what the opponent chose, right? So our choice versus the opponent's choice. So here, X would be a tie on A. So that was what, 3, right?
Yep. Yep.
And then X is rock. So rock to paper, that would be a loss. So that's 0. And then C, X to C, which is scissor, would be a win, which is 6.
Nice.
Right.
Okay. So I'm
Yeah.
copy and paste code. Put it as Z. So then.
So paper to rock would be a win,
win.
right? Paper covers
Yep.
rock. So 6-3-0 because tie 0. Yep.
Sounds good. Yeah, making sense so far.
And then Z would be Z to paper, or scissor to rock would be a loss. So that's 0, 6, and 3.
Okay.
Cool.
Very nice dictionary here.
This should definitely be const though. Do you like const or let? Do you have a preference? I know a lot of people still like let. I like const, even though you can modify it and it's not really a const.
You know what? Usually I use let 100% of the time, and then before I go into code review,
Yeah,
or my editor yells at me saying, "Hey, you never modified this.
yeah,
Change it to const."
yeah.
So yeah. Okay.
I've watched some stuff with Dan Abramov, and he's like, "Yeah, I use let for everything," and I'm like, "That's cool. Like nobody's going to go into a code review with Dan Abramov and be like, 'Hey, Dan, use const here.'" Um, but yeah, like it's I still like to use const, especially just for my own personal preference of if we're not modifying the reference, yes, use a const.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Okay. So then,
I like how you spent all the time typing out quotation marks too, and the linter, or I don't know if you have linter or pretty. You've got prettier in here. Took them
yeah.
away. It's like, dude, you don't need those. I was like, what was that? One, two, three. That's like a lot of extra characters.
Yeah. That's how I like it.
15, so 30 extra keystroke, 30 keystrokes that you just wasted,
Yeah.
but that's okay.
Well, I'll make it up in another way. So now we have these two lists, and we have to get through the score. Combine the score, the win, using this example. Any and now I think it's your time to shine. So I managed to type up the data structures. Let's dive
Yeah.
into the algorithm. Let's see if we can get from like n factorial, like start going down to like n cubed, n
I
squared.
really hope to God that we're not doing any sort of n factorial stuff on this. Like, I feel like, especially using objects like this and using maps where the lookups are should be big O I mean, it's big O of one, but not really one. It's like, but it's constant time lookups. Um, I really hope that I don't mess something up so bad that we get n factorial. Like, that'd be real, real bad. All right. So you want me to take over?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, cool. So we have the list of examples. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to map to try to figure out, like to loop over these things, map from to figure out what the value is. And then the sum is the total sum of, let's see, what was the sum? Total sum of the value of the score plus the choice score, right? So for each one of these, I need to figure out who is the winner and get the score there, and then add the additional score here. So really, it should just be one loop over with a reduce. So I'm going to reduce from the original input array, get the values, and return that as a sum. So we can do example, let's say, const score. No, we already have score. Total equals example reduce, and we're going to say sum, and then I'm going to do one thing real quick. That's the example, but I'm going to do, let's see, game. I'm going to call that game. I'm going to, let's see, that's, so it's the accumulator, and then it's the individual value, right? And we'll start with 0, right?
yes. We can. It's optional if we
Okay.
don't want to just start
I'm,
with the first thing
I'm
in the
going to
list.
I'm going to start with 0 because the first thing in the list is going to be a string
Mm,
value, right? But I'm going to start with 0 just because I like being explicit too. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, we're going to use, so the game, this is an example. So each one of these games is going to be of type, it's going to be an array of string values, right? So
yep.
it's going to be a string array. So I'm just go ahead and, because we're using TypeScript, I'm going to be explicit here and say string array, and say sum is number. Actually, that can be inferred. And the game can be inferred too, but I just want to make sure we can delete that later. And I'm going to say opponent. So here's another fun fact about me. World's worst speller. If not for spell check, I think I would probably lose my job. So I'm very glad for spell check. And I'm not even sure that's how you spell opponent. So we're going to go with this. So I'm going to use some objects, some array destructuring to get the opponent and the elf from the game. And then I'm going to say get from the win. So the score is going to be win of elf, comma, opponent, not comma, elf, opponent, right? And then plus the score of the elf. So this is going to be the score of the individual game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to add that to that. I was just giving me squigglies. What if I give this type?
Nice use of the record type.
Let's see, record. Oh wait. So it is, right? It's a record of a record of strings.
String
Oh,
number.
There we go. I was missing the key index of the record. Okay, cool. So what it should do is it should actually, let's see this. I'm going to change this a little bit. I'm going to say opponent elf and use the destructuring here. And then I'm going to do it in a single line.
Nice.
Okay.
Okay.
That should be it.
Yeah. So I think we are good. Let's just make sure one last thing I'm going to do is return total, which kind of makes it 2 lines. But yeah, we can also do it that way. Okay. So we've managed to like build our data structures, have our algorithm, we put them together. What is your degree of confidence that when we go to run this, we are looking for the correct answer is 15? What do you think the answer is that we will get?
Do you want to run through it real quick and do like a little like call analysis here? So let's see, what was the input A, Y, B, X, C, Z, right? So the first iteration, so let's go, sum is the initial, so sum is 0, right? That's the initial value. A and Y, so we say sum, which is 0, plus the win of, and this is opponent elf. So opponent elf, so I need elf opponent. So sum plus win of Y A is 6. And then the score of the elf, which is Y, which is 2. So that's 2. So now sum is 8. So now we say 8 plus, and then the next one is XB. So XB is 0. And then the X, which is 1, which is 9. And then the last one is 9 plus CZ, which is C3 plus 3, which is 9 plus 3 is 12 plus 3 is 15. So I have a very high confidence that the total score will be correct. After that.
Okay. With that,
except for the fact that we're saying, oh, I guess it doesn't matter that we have to return 0 there, but did I just delete the? This won't matter because we're already returning, but I don't like it there.
There we go. Our build was failing because I copy pasted code for part 2. Nothing we did.
Okay. So one of the, you and I talked about this before we got on the live stream. I've been doing other days as well. And so day 4 and day 5, I thought to myself, I could probably do this with one function, like the same solution, but different function inputs, or like a different way of doing it. And so I don't know what day 2 holds, but that's my goal, is to hopefully we can either write a generic function that allows you to solve both problems with a single function. I don't know yet. I don't know what the step 2 is, but we'll see.
Cool. Yeah, I noticed somebody is in chat. I'm still reeling from the 30 extra characters you had to type. I'll see if I can hold up my keyboard.
Oh God, what is that?
2 pieces. It is a Moonlander. It's based on the Ergo docs. Very quickly, this could easily become like AJ's keyboard channel. But
Ooh, I'm gonna do one more thing.
But I ran it. Did you? Can you see the console? The people can see the console.
I can't see your console. Is there a way to pull up the console? Like if I pull up the console locally,
tilde.
Well, I know that's. Is that going to show your console though?
I think.
Or am I going to get my
own
own console?
It should show you mine.
Oh, there we go. Cool. Yep, 15.
15. Okay. So I think we're ready.
You want to submit it?
Well,
try with the try it with real input and then
try with 15. Do you think?
Yeah.
Just skip right to the answer, and I'm not going to try 15. I'm gonna go with the real input.
Well, yeah, go with the real input and like just see what we get now. Okay, gotcha. And is this what account are you using on Advent of Code to be able to because this isn't yours.
Well, it's mine.
Okay.
It's just I'm getting lots and lots of people to help me. So this way, when I go to my friends to brag that, hey, I made it to Advent of Code day 8, check out my repo. They probably aren't going to go through all the commits and see that it's like, oh, so-and-so helped you with this day, with this day, with this. All you did was just talk to people while they solved your problems. And I'm thinking that's a pretty good deal.
Isn't that what managers do, AJ? That's what I hear. That's what good managers do.
Yep, just talk to people. So yeah, I think we're good. I think it's worth a shot. So 13,221. That's metric, by the way. I'm going to hit submit. Oh, geez. Yeah, see, so everybody on stream can see, but you can't. We got it. We got the first gold star.
I can't see the screen, but I'm like, I think it's got to be right. But I'm glad you made me worry there for a second.
Good. Every time I submit, I worry a lot because there's been so many Advent of Codes where I'm like, yeah, clearly it's right, and then I'll hit submit, and it's like, oh no, it's wrong. It's far too low. And I'm like, clearly there's a bug in Advent of Code.
I got one this year and I typed the number wrong. It was like 8801 or something like that. And I typed 8001. And I felt like I got in trouble because I submitted the answer like, that's not the right answer, but that's the answer to somebody else's problem. Are you sure you didn't copy somebody else's answer? And I was like, no, I did. I swear I didn't. But I felt like a kid getting slapped on the hand. I was like, hold on a second, wait, I think I just typed that wrong. Another fun one today, I was talking to one of our other developers, Akash, who I don't know if he's watching or not. It was like, I did it. It's the right answer. I know it's the right answer. I know the code is right, but the answer is wrong. And he found out that the way that he was parsing the input that he was giving it was slightly off. And I'm like, but that's another great thing about this is you also get to practice your debugging, right? Mm-hmm. I remember there was one of the ACM programming competitions that I was in college. We had a really, really great programmer who, again, he works for Google now too. His name is Peter Burns. But he wrote, like, we all kind of took a problem and worked on it independently, and then when we were done, we kind of wrote the solution in. And he, of course, took the really hard way. It was like a graph-based problem, and he used, A star search or something to solve it. But it didn't work. And he's like, I know the code's right. And that's when I learned that, like, the best thing that I can do about programming is, like, I'm a good debugger. That's my superpower. And he didn't use good variable names. He was using, like, D and P and R and E and V. And what he had done is, one of his graph indexes, whether it's supposed to be vertexes or edges or something like that, he switched them. And I was able to find it within a certain amount of time, and we got the problem right. But he couldn't find his own bug. And so, two valuable lessons. Sometimes all it needs is a second set of eyes, and then get really good at reading code, because that's 90% of our jobs.
Yes. Oh man, if I had a nickel for every time. But for me, what always gets me,
Is that a Canadian nickel?
yeah, so it's like 3.89
Okay,
American nickels, or 3.89 of an American nickel.
gotcha.
Comments. When I'm going through, nothing gets me more fired up than reading a comment that describes how a function behaves, and, like, not having the Git history, just looking at a file, and it's like, well, that's not what the function does. And people that have written books and that have said code never lies, comments sometimes do. And yeah, oh yeah, this is how this function works, and it's like, yeah. So that's the last, in my debugging journey, I was like, okay, well, if that's how that function works, that's correct. I'm going to, like, do everything else. And then it landed back on that function, and it's like, sure enough, like, must have been a change at some point in time for
Gotcha.
that.
I
So,
put a nice little Easter egg in the code for you now. Then.
ooh, uh-oh, does it still run?
Oh yeah,
Oh, the formatting looks different.
I did format it
Oh,
differently. Look at line.
yeah, that's, just thinking about it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste part 2 into the code in a comment. So it has part 2 right here. Going to just paste that in. And just for a very short amount of time, I am going to turn word wrap on while we just kind of look through this. So just reading through the problem, the second column says how the round needs to end.
Where is this
So,
at? Oh, okay, gotcha. We're already
okay,
on. Okay, gotcha.
yeah, so X means you need to lose, Y means you need to end the round in a draw, and Z means you need to win. So they're switching it up a bit on us.
Okay. So it's not the choice that they made, it's how the round needs to end.
Yes.
Okay.
So total score is still the same, but
Cool,
now we
that's
need
good.
to figure out which shape to choose so the round ends as indicated.
Okay.
So
Cool.
in the first round, I think there's some things we can do. Definitely. So yeah, and it gives us now when we've run it, decrypting, your score should be 12.
Okay.
So
Put that in the spec.
yes.
So basically all we're doing is everything's the same, which is good. We still calculate it the same way. So what we have works. We just need to add an additional step that's going to translate from the input value for the ELF to the actual choice instead of the choice that's in the list. So we're mapping from the value that's in the list to the actual choice based off of the result.
Right.
Right. Okay.
So I'm just going to do, let me double check. So many words. I don't know how people solve it so fast, given how many words there are.
I was talking to, there was another guy here, Ibrahim. I don't know if he's on or not, but um, one of our hunches was because of the fact that there's so many words, right? We, I have an inkling that some people are able to look at the input and the output and know what the solution should be. You know what I mean? Especially for the ones that are like 58 seconds. Like I know that they probably have utilities of things to be able to like parse input the right way. So they don't have to do anything other than like, okay, I need to use this function that will parse the input in the right way and put it in the right data structure. I need this thing that will prepare things this way. And then basically understand, okay, I have this algorithm that I need to be able to solve it and then just plug everything together. But it's like, I feel like for some of these, for 58 seconds, you just have to look at the input and output and be like, okay, I know what to do, which is crazy.
Yes. Yeah, that is
That's some
pretty nuts.
savant level stuff right there. Which is why.
Okay. So I think to an extent, like our win stays the same
That's still
because
good. Yep.
X is a win, and those points should work. But now, instead of being knowing that it's rock, so I think we'll need another data structure similar to this,
Yep. Agreed.
but instead it'll be our score. Which means our score down
Well, we
here is
still.
going to have to take the same. What?
I think we still need the score though, because we still need to know the original value, right?
Yes. So with this, we need to be able to say
There's like
if
1, 2, and
it's
3, right? Like
uh,
if it is a Y, if it is a Z, if it is an X that was originally passed, and we still need 1, 2, or 3,
yes. So
right?
I think it would be like, you know what? I think just very quickly, I'm just going to go A, B, C, and then X. Oh, that only worked the first time. All these extra
You're trying.
keystrokes. Because,
Oh, hold on a second. Stop. I'll do it. Let me do it.
okay, you're going,
Uh,
is it
uh,
Shift, Alt, something? There we go.
opt,
Z.
alt Shift click, or yeah. Are you on a Mac? You're on a Mac, right?
Yeah, on a Mac,
Opt,
but
opt, opt Shift click.
Op Shift click. Okay.
Oops. You can also duplicate records too by doing that, but or by hitting down.
So if it's A, and like in this example, let's just try and solve for this one. So if we scroll to in the first round, your opponent will choose rock. You need to end in a draw, so you will also choose rock. This gives you a score of 1 plus 3 equals 4. So we need this, the y, to be 1. So then for A, x would be, is this, am I making sense? What I'm trying to do?
I don't know. So I think what you're saying is, are we trying to do it in similar? So we're taking the sum, so that's fine. We're still taking the win. We might have to modify that.
Yeah. Because if it's A, if they pass in an A, I don't know that like y can no longer be rock or anything. Y has to
Yeah.
be relative. So like in B, when it is paper, y would be also paper, and paper is worth 2. And then with C, scissors, Y would also be scissors, and scissors are 3.
Okay, I got it. So you're basically taking out the original score and we're updating it so that it'll be the actual like end resulting score, right?
Yeah, and I
Okay.
I guess if we also added this to it, but then it kind of, if we want to go back and be able to try and solve it using one problem, I think we still need score and win to be separate
Yeah.
data structures.
So let
So
me do this. Let's try and keep this the same. Here's what I actually let me see. Let me hear. Let me see here. So like as I say, Khan's choice is a string, record string, string. And I say this equals, and I'm going to do everything relative to our choice again, right? Or everything relative to what the value is. Y and Z. Do you say Z or Z?
Z.
You do?
Yeah, a big fan. My
With my
daughter
last name,
is. What?
with my last name being starting with a Z, I have to say Z. I can't. I just there's something about I can't say Z.
Yes.
All right. So this is kind of what I was thinking, to where now if we look at, well, we didn't change any of the win, did we?
No. Win stays the same.
Okay. So if I look at this again and I say,
Well, actually, now that I say that, the win changes.
let me see, what was win before?
So one of the issues with win is that, like, if we go through the example A and Y, in the previous it would have been a win, but it's no longer a win because Y now means draw. So
Well, hold
it's
on. So yeah, so what I want to do is I want to say, like, this stays the same, right?
Okay.
Because it even says like the way you calculate this is the same, right? Because it like this means you need to lose, like you need to, or this means you need to end the round in a draw. This needs you need to lose. This needs you to win. But like once you determine what the actual, like, just because Y needs to mean the end of the round in a draw doesn't mean this
Okay.
calculation needs to change. It just means that you have to map from this into whatever would give you a draw or whatever would give you a loss or win. So that's what I was thinking about, like mapping to transpose this value into the correct choice based on what you're doing, and then keep everything else the same.
Interesting.
So now if I did so X rock, right? So rock is, or Y is tie, right?
Yeah.
So X, Y, Z, right? So
Yeah.
Y is tie.
Thank you.
And then X is lose. So rock,
Is yes.
we have to
Yeah.
choose. So rock is theirs. We have to choose scissor, right?
Yep.
Right. And then B would be X and C would be Y. And then Z means we want to win. And so in order to win, so that's scissor. So we need
Rock. A is rock.
paper, right?
Yeah.
A would be paper, right? Because paper beats rock.
Yeah.
Paper, scissor, rock, right? And so
Yep.
now the difference is we can add a step here to say map, and then we can say opponent choice, and we can say return opponent, and then the choice of, that's a bad naming, choice map. The The three hardest things in computer science: naming things. What's the other ones? Um,
Off by one
cat.
error.
Well, that's the joke though. The two hardest things are naming things, cache eviction, and off by one error. All right. Okay.
Okay. So now why is it saying something about elf? Record string can't be used as an index. Oh, because I think we need choice map as a two.
Oh, that's right. So we have the choice and then the opponent, right? Is that right?
You know what? Let's run it, see if we get the right answer. If we get the wrong answer, we'll just flip them and see if we get the right one.
Okay.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm just going to go to main, make sure day 2. Yep, that looks good. Check that it's still building. Yep, that looks good. Okay, going to run it. 12. So, yep, we were expecting 12. So I think that's puts us in a good situation.
Okay. So that it feels very brute forcey, and this is the one where it's like, use because even like looking at it now, like these are all equal. Obviously, these are all like -1. So B -1 would be X. C -1 would be Y. A -1 would bring you back around to the end. A +1 would be Y. B +1 would be Z. C +1 would be the end. So it'd bring you back around to the beginning. So like, I totally think that you could do it with math, but it's like that's kind of like I know this works. This isn't leak code where they're going to somehow surprise us and be like, oh, also, by the way, you can't fit any of this into memory. I don't know. This is the struggle where it's like, I know there's a better solution, but don't really need it. I don't know. Because even looking at the input, like the input isn't like it's all the same stuff. And we know that there's only 3 choices and the memory required to store all of these things in memory at the time for constant time lookup. It's still big O of N.
Yeah, yeah. And one of the things while we're going through, let's check. So I'm guessing that you have a pretty high degree of confidence that this is going to be right. This is going to give me my 4th star of December, my 2nd star today. Let's run it.
Slightly more than 2 minutes and 8 seconds.
Just a smidge. Like,
oh, I like that number is a palindrome. That
ooh.
is appeasing to me.
I don't know, that makes me nervous. So I'm going to type it in. 0 to 100, 100 being it's absolutely sure you're correct, 0 being like there's no way that's correct. Where are you sitting?
Based on the fact that they said the way that you sum it is the same. So I'm 100% confident in that because we already got that one right. And that all we're doing is mapping from one choice to the actual value that you choose for that. I feel 99% confident.
Ooh, that is high. I'm going to hit submit. So
I'm also an optimist. So I've also said like, hey, yeah, we'll be done with that in 6 months. And then 2.5 years later, and we're in prod. So that's been a thing too, that like, not always a good thing, but I feel like it's a pretty low risk situation to be high confidence.
So I hit submit. I got the 2nd gold star. So we solved day 2 in
Awesome.
its entirety.
Cool.
So one of the things, looking at this, as we went through, so I'm going to hop back to day 1, and I'm just going to run it one more time so that we make sure that we know day 2. Yeah, go through that. So 13,221. One of the things I was thinking as we solved the second problem, if we had a structure like this, I think we could get rid of this one because we can just add it. Like we could go through and like, okay, so like x, we know x is 1. So if we increment like increment by 1. So in like what I mean is this would be like 4 1 7.
Where are you typing right now?
Oh, day 2 part 1,
Oh,
line
gotcha.
16.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha.
So
Okay. So yeah, cool. I like it. So you're taking out the score altogether and you're just adding it in
yeah,
because X is worth 1. And so like the next one would be
increment by 2.
852. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip this back and I'm going to do the commit because if somebody was to look at the commit history, got day 2 solved, and then let's add an emoji. Let's do Christmas tree, and I think I still have Santa. Okay, let's commit that, push. Now, for in perpetuity on the GitHub blockchain, you and I co-authored a commit. So and now
Yeah, but you get
we
credit for all of it too, right?
well actually I get credit for some of it. So if I go to GitHub, my repo, Advent of Code, let me just go to my repo, Advent of Code
Do I get
this year.
values for lines that I changed or something?
Yeah. So if I go, I'll
Really?
have commits. And if you look here on this commit, it will have, oh, here, if I go to, it has your GitHub user.
Interesting.
Yeah, co-authored by Jared Zwane.
Huh.
Yeah,
That's pretty wild.
yeah, that is the magic of LiveShare. And I believe LiveShare isn't exclusive to VS Code. I've never tried it in anything but VS Code. Um, but I've heard that it's available in other platforms. So if you have a very other platform, um, give it a
That's
shot.
cool.
Let us know how it works.
I was
Um,
gonna make another management joke about how I did all the work and you got all the credit. Um,
I mean, there is like there is the GitHub source. There's the video that'll be available for I think it's a week after we're done streaming. Um, so there's those wonderful pieces.
yeah.
Um,
The risk is though, you get the credit, but you also get to get blame. So if anything goes wrong, it's your name on the get blame. So
yeah, yep, definitely. So how did that feel to you? How did this problem like easy, hard?
pretty easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty easy. Again, it's one of those things too where this is where I sometimes have a hard time letting go, and I know that there are other people on our teams that do too. Where it's this solves the problem. This certainly uh, will get you the gold stars. I know that there's a mathematical like way to be able to increment or decrement the number based off of the choice and based off like to be able to calculate the number based off of indexes in array or indexes of chart codes or like to be able to assign rock 1, rock 0, paper 1, scissor 2, and then just be able to do a calculation to say like, okay, if they're the same, it's a tie. And then basically if the choice is different, or if you want to win or lose, you add one or subtract one, because it's really easy. It's just like it's a rotational game, right? Like rock beats, or rock loses the paper, paper loses the scissor, scissor loses the rock, and it just goes in a circle. And same thing, scissor beats paper, paper beats rock, rock beats scissor, and it goes back. So it's like adding one or subtracting one gets you what you need, all the information that you need based on calculate, are you a winner? Are you not a winner? So like that type of stuff where it's like, it bothers me that it's not optimal in that sense, but it's also not something I've, mentioned. I've got a 10-year-old and a 13-year-old at home. Um, I did day 4 while sitting on the couch watching football. My wife called me a nerd, which I proudly accepted that moniker, as long as she didn't call me a dweeb or something like that. No offense to any dweebs on the call, but it goes back to my motivations for doing that, which is just to have fun and to get the gold stars and to provide a solution, and not to spend too much time driving myself crazy for stuff like that.
Yeah, that you can definitely, especially because there's people that add all these extra constraints to Advent of Code, which is something I love to watch. It's not where my forte is. I'm definitely more of a like a, whatever the solution is, let's solve it. So get it solved first. And usually in my working career, in Donald Knuth's like famous like make it work, make it right, make it fast.
Yeah.
Usually I get to like make it work, and sometimes I get to make it right. Usually try and do those two steps together. Um, and very seldom is it to the point where it's like, okay, well, now that you've done all of that, make it fast.
Yeah.
I think he did say something about like, oh, and then you should test it too. Um,
Well, that's the benefit of using. What are you using? Are you using Jest?
yes.
What are we using? Yeah. So, and
Yes.
that I'm using the same thing this year. So it's like, being able to prove that I have 100% code coverage. Like, great. We're using Test for all these things.
So what I think we have a little bit more time. We probably won't go
Oh,
all the
this is cool.
way, but one of the things I like to do is now that we've solved it, we get to go look into somebody else's solution. I have no idea where their solutions are. Oh, nice. Python, Rust, and TypeScript.
Nice.
Um,
No peeking.
yeah, I would never dream. Interesting. Simple shape strategy map. I have no idea what that is.
Go to his rock, paper, scissor dot type.ts. Like, just type dot JS? The JS?
Yeah.
So he's using TypeScript, but he's got JS files.
This is. I'm loving every second of this. Okay, I'm just gonna. Okay, so I think similar. Like it looks like he's doing the. Oh, very interesting. Um, Using a method to
Yeah.
figure that out, not going through the map process.
Yeah.
I think this is still big O N.
Yeah.
Um,
The same. It's a very similar solution, right?
yes.
So where you've essentially got maps, and that's what he's got here, where he's got the losing response map, the winning response map, a function to get the outcome based off of a choice. So the choice returns the outcome. The outcome will determine the winning response, the losing response, all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. So if we hop to day 2, and then yeah, I had a little bit of modification to
Yep.
this because of the outcome. Very similar to what we did. It's just we used a lookup instead of going through like a function to do the calculations. Um, I guess if you wanted, you could test these functions. I do see a spec file, and
Yeah.
it. Well, I
Not
mean,
testing individual functions, but testing the
yeah.
entire thing as a whole.
So there's pros and cons. Yeah, that was interesting.
Interesting that he made the tests async. That's I didn't see any async code anywhere in there, but
Okay, so on to the
yeah,
next
here you
one.
go. Here we go. So this is like mod 3 plus 3 mod 3. So this is the math solution to it, to where it's mapping it from, okay, choice to number. That's interesting here that he's taking, the string value and just returning an index as opposed to like map. Like, because what I would do is I would take the char code of the value that you're being passed in, the char code of a, like for example, like I would destructure, right? So
Mm,
bring up the code again. If I was doing it that way, I would say like example dot map, and then same thing here, like opponent health, and then I would return an array of opponent dot char code at 0 minus, oops, minus, and then the opponent is a, right?
mhm.
And then same thing for the elf,
Yeah.
something like that. And that would essentially map it from like a comma y to 0 comma 1, right?
Mhm.
And then you could just do everything based off of the 0 1 values to be able to determine winners, losers, that kind of stuff. But I would map it, like prepping the input, map it like that.
Well, luckily, I don't know how much memory these objects are going to take up.
Yeah.
Um, but I think we're safe for most devices. I'm not going to say all, because some people still have Blackberries. Um, but
Yeah.
for the most part, I think,
The another quick anecdote. The first computer that I ever owned, my dad bought it for. We went to like I lived in Ohio at the time. We went to like a convention center. So you have like gun shows. It wasn't a
yeah,
gun show. They had like a technology expo at the thing, and like they were selling like desktop computers at this expo. And I think we bought something for like $1,200 or something crazy like that. But it had like a 500 megahertz processor and like 500 megs of RAM or something like that. It was something crazy like that. And now you can buy a Raspberry Pi for $40. That's like twice as powerful, and it's got like an SD card in it. So like a 2 terabyte SD card inside of this thing that has like a 2 gigahertz processor and 4 gigs of RAM or whatever the things have now. It's like that would have cost $32,000 back in the year. I'm not going to say what year it was, but back in the year when I bought that computer. Um,
oh,
I didn't have a mouse, so I had to learn all the keyboard shortcuts. So that was
ooh,
fun. Yeah,
that is. Do you use a mouse today?
I do. I do.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
especially for like nice instead, like to not use regex and to be able to multi-select lines. I need a mouse for that.
Well, good thing you aren't on one of the later days, because we're going to start switching up the editor. We're going to,
Ooh,
yeah, just go to Vim, Vim
perfect.
Motions, but
I
not
like it.
tell the person that's coming on.
Perfect.
Um,
I like that.
that we're not. I would lose friends pretty fast if I did that. There are some
You're
people I
you're
work with that use
you're
Vim
already gonna
Motions.
you're already gonna throw Ben for a loop because he uses Eclipse still. So
Yeah.
I don't know if he knows what VS Code is, but and I hope he's watching. But otherwise, it feels like I'm just like talking bad behind his back. But
Oh,
one of these
no.
days.
Yeah, I used Eclipse. I actually used Eclipse in university, for undergrad for like coding, and
Which was the
then,
last appropriate time to use Eclipse, right?
well, I used it in grad studies as well, because of some of the stuff I was doing with AI was built off of Eclipse. So they used it like, oh, we need an editor. what editor has been around for 10 plus years, open source, easily expandable? Back then, the answer was Eclipse. I think today the answer would be VS Code.
Yeah.
But back then, Eclipse. And
Have you, speaking of looking at other people's code, and now that I know you took like AI in your master's program, have you tried to solve any of these using the GPT-3 chat, the chat, AI chatbot? Have you seen that? You've seen that. I'm sure you've seen
yeah,
that.
I've seen it. To answer your question, no, I haven't used it. One of the extensions I have turned off for Advent of Code is GitHub Copilot. While Wade and I were trialing this out, we went to solve like 2016 or something like that, just to see like, is this a good fit for Stream? Which let me know if you don't think it is. Um, but one of the things I found with GitHub Copilot, I started to write like function calls and it would just like autocomplete the function. So it was like find intersection, I'm going to pass it this, and then it like just spits out a bunch of code and I'm like, whoa, that looks more right than what I was going to type. Like find direction, and it's just like takes in a number and then it automatically converted it, or vice versa. Um, it was pretty illuminating. I think it might catch on.
I like that. I think it definitely will.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
I
pretty
think I'm
good.
gonna try to do some more working out to figure out my manual labor game before I lose my job to a chatbot. Also, from what I've heard, AJ, it's hard to manage like artificial intelligence employees. So you may need to start looking for a new job too.
Yeah, I mean, somebody's got to provide that like human input data.
For now, keep telling yourself
For
that.
now.
Keep telling yourself that.
Yeah, what one day we'll hit the inflection point. I hope I hope today's not that day, because boy do I love coding. Cool. Okay. Well, I think I think it's great that we found a problem like we have on the screen. Being able to see somebody going through like the mathematical approach. I would say one of the benefits of going this route is that it's a bit more granular. You get a bit more ability to test like the inner pieces. And then when I look at this solution, I see no test files. So
Yeah,
I'm kind of like, okay, well, maybe some people just love math. I'm not one of them.
yeah. It's like one of the interview questions that I like, and it's like I try not to be like try not to trick people. I used to do that when I was younger and I was dumber. Um, but it's like some a list of integers from one to some passed in number n. So you pass in the number 5 as a parameter, and it sums 5 plus 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1, right? So you can do it with a for loop, you can do it with recursion, or it's n times n plus 1 over 2, right? So it's like it's not a trick question, but it's like some people are like, oh yeah, it's just n times n plus 1 over 2. I'm like, okay, can you at least like write a for loop or write a recursion just to show me that you can? But I
Yeah,
like me.
that's what I find, that Advent of Code is very similar to the types of questions in interviews. Like you almost get the feeling that they're looking for a certain algorithm or certain data structure, and that there's like somebody behind the scenes being like, this is how I think it would be solved, and then the problem kind of wraps around that
Yeah.
possible solution. Um, very like some interview questions I've had are like the take home, like, yeah, just show us what you got, build us something that does something cool. Here's some like very vague guidelines. Um, Other ones when it's like, I remember one was like the classical invert binary tree, and
Yeah.
I remember just like I totally lost it. In the interview, I was just like kept on trying to think of like
All you're doing is
taking
like flipping the branches though, right?
yeah, flip the
Yeah.
branches, and
It's
it's
like you
like this.
iterate down, it's like left dot right equals right dot left and
Yeah,
recursively do it back. Yeah.
I got held up on the like, you have a graph and you need it upside down. And I kept on saying that, and they were smiling, being like, yeah, that's not what we mean. But they wouldn't say that it's
Yeah,
like, this is why.
it's called
Um,
a bad interviewer.
well, I didn't get the job, so probably for the best.
It's
Um,
definitely a bad interviewer then. I know that for sure.
oh, well, thank you. This was great. I am super excited. I think we are planning on going up to day 8. So our next stream, we have one this Thursday, same time. And then this Friday, same time. So this is the only week in December we're doing 3 streams in a week. Um, I'm not going to spoil who's attending for Friday, but we both know that gentleman. Um,
Which day are you dealing with him?
Friday, this Friday.
I know, but what
Um,
is it day? Like
oh,
what day of Advent?
4, day 4.
Oh, okay, cool, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay,
So should be cool.
the next one's you're doing one Thursday for day 8 though.
I'm not, but Wade is. Yeah.
Cool.
I get to
All
be
right.
a bystander, and then just hopefully they use my same repo, and I just get the credit.
It's great management 101 right there. That's awesome.
Delegate. Yeah, so again, I just really want to thank you for helping me on this quest of getting Advent code. Um, love being able to like actually code and see where people's minds at, how they're taking problems, putting them to that. In the stream, if you like these kind of streams, let us know and we'll keep on doing them. So any parting words of wisdom from you, Jared?
No, just have fun with the Advent of Code stuff. Um, it's. I was talking to somebody earlier today. One of the, having imposter syndrome as developers is a pretty common thing. Um, Advent of Code typically doesn't help with that, especially when you see people that can solve these things in 2 minutes and 8 seconds, and that's not what we did it in. Um, but just know that you're good enough, and know that as long as you keep learning and you always have a thirst for knowledge, that you're going to be fine. So thank you for attending.
Awesome. Though that is probably one of the best conclusions I've heard in a very long time. So again, thank you for attending. If you're still on the stream, thanks for watching. Make sure to check us out Thursday and Friday of this week, and then Tuesday and Thursday of the next week. Check out our social. I'll just get that in the chat right now. Follow us on Twitter. Like us on, I think, LinkedIn. Do you like or one up? I'm not a huge LinkedIn fan, so don't look for me there. But check out my GitHub. Okay, and I think we're good. Again, thanks for coming. See ya.
Thanks.